Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Welcome back. Welcome back to another
Welcome back.
episode of In Sync Marriage Podcast with
Woo.
Sami and Tosin LA.
Yes, we are back, and we're gonna be.
We're going to be yapping. We're going to be
You're gonna be
talking.
yapping. I'm gonna be talking. There's something on my mind I need to drop today.
Oh, really? So what are we talking about then,
We're
babe?
gonna be talking about money.
Ooh.
Yeah. let's
Money,
get
money,
into it.
money, money.
In looking at some of the things most marriages struggle with, or the things that lead to divorce, money is a big part of it, right?
Yeah,
we
there's
talk
a big
about,
three.
Yeah, the lack of communication,
Number one.
intimacy, or
Number
the lack
two.
thereof,
Mm-hmm.
and then money.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
it's usually physical intimacy that people cite. They
Yes.
cite sex, they cite money, and they cite communication as the
Yes.
top three causes of divorce.
correct.
So last week we talked to you guys, or last episode we talked about communication, and there's always more to talk about. There's not enough you can squeeze into 30 minutes, but we talked about that. And now we're talking about money,
Yes.
finances, financial differences, financial discord, financial issues or disagreements.
Absolutely.
All right,
Yeah.
so let's talk about it, babe.
Okay.
What is it about money that causes people to have strife? What is it about money that leads people to divorce?
So you're gonna throw me in there, huh?
Oh, bruh.
All right, let's do it. So I think from bird's eye view, money is deep.
Absolutely.
And it starts before we even get married.
Okay, talk about
It
it.
starts with our upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with the society we're growing up in.
Absolutely.
All of those things shape us and shape our idea and how we present ourselves when it comes to money. There's so many examples around us, right? You have people who grow up in households where, money was good. It was
money.
excess. And that never went away their entire time that they were growing up.
Okay.
And so those people tend to have a very relaxed attitude when it comes to money.
Absolutely.
Like it's a tool.
Yeah.
We're just gonna use it. We'll have it, and we'll be
always have
fine.
it. Mhm.
Exactly. And then you have folks who have really had not so pleasant experiences when it comes to money. Right?
Absolutely.
Say you take for example someone who maybe dad and mom were well off in the beginning, and something happened, maybe due to a job or somebody passes away. All of a sudden, money dries up. So how that shapes that person can be very unique
Yeah.
in their approach to adulthood and how they present themselves in a marriage.
So our
Right.
life experiences shape our relationship with money.
1,000%, and
Okay.
it needs to be addressed. It needs to be discussed before we start talking about marriage.
Or even identified, because a lot of people don't even know what their personal relationship is with
True.
money. I can tell you that I didn't really understand or know what my relationship was with money by the time I was getting married to you.
You never thought about it.
I never thought about it. Money for me, honestly, it was a mixed. I don't even think I ever cared about money. I'm the youngest, so I grew up in a home where even if I didn't have mom and dad to give me, there was always an uncle and auntie,
Someone you could call.
an older sibling. There was
Right.
always somebody, and always being the youngest meant that at least even there was always somebody responsible for me
Right.
financially.
Right.
And so I never really thought or cared about money per se. And I truly always thought, even though for a period of my life, I grew up in a single parent home with my mom, I really always thought that money was a man's problem. Like financial management was a man's
That a man
responsibility.
should be responsible
That
for
was
it.
my thought process growing up, because growing up in Nigeria,
Dad
that
handled
is
it.
the primary thing you see. Even when I was being raised by my mom, and my parents were separated, my dad was still the one financing our lifestyle. So you would still have to go to dad to request money.
Right.
You would still have to go to dad with your list. He'll then send the money and my mom would execute.
Right.
So mom's execute, dad's expend was what I grew up with. And I know that there's a lot of people who grew up in Africa with the same kind of
Absolutely.
thought process. Now I can see how if you struggled growing up with money, you would have your fist will become tight when you do have money.
Yes.
Money becomes something that you almost start to worship, for lack of a better word, because you care about it, you value it, you don't want to lose it. It must not finish because I don't ever want to experience that kind of life ever again.
Yeah.
I don't want my children to experience that kind of life. Becomes something that drives you, right? Versus, like you said, when you grow up in plenty, it's like you spend easily, no problem. And then there's always, of course, when you talked about upbringing, there's also the belief in our school of thought in Nigeria, where you hear from women, or mothers or aunties that tell young girls when they're about to get married to make sure that they keep their separate account, keep something to their side that your husband does not know anything about.
It's called rainy day fund.
Yeah,
just in case money, right?
What do you think about that?
I think the aunties mean well.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're coming from a good place, and keep in mind too, a lot of the aunties and moms
that are giving that advice,
they've experienced a lot of trauma as well, right? When they themselves have been through the horror of completely relying on a man, and then something happens to that man, and then that well dries up, you can imagine how they feel. So if they're going to advise the next generation, what are they going to say? They're going to say, hey, make sure you protect yourself. But in that, I advise, even though they mean well,
it's a trauma
very
response.
problematic.
It's a trauma
because for them, it's a trauma response, and it creates a problem for the person they're giving the advice to.
You're passing on generational trauma
exactly.
response. That was your response to the trauma you experienced or you witnessed somebody else experience.
Yes.
Your response was to hoard aside. A lot of the women that do this are either from polygamous homes. There's multiple wives. So you've learned to keep for your children aside. That's usually what it is. Keep for your children. Safety net, yes. Or women who are in a home where infidelity is normal. The guy can bring somebody in at any time and you may lose everything. Or like you said, the ones whose spouses didn't have an insurance plan or a plan, a will or something that was protected by law, and so they lost everything.
So for them, that was safety.
So it's a trauma response. You created that safety to protect you from something that was traumatic.
Right.
Now you then take that and you impress that on the next generation that may never experience that trauma.
Exactly.
But because you have now impressed that on them, they've taken it as gospel truth. They now go on and start to live in preparation for a trauma that may never happen, which causes a flawed foundation for a marriage.
Yes.
And that's what we tend to see.
That's what's happening.
A lot, especially, again, I hate to keep talking about our African descent folks, but that is huge.
It's major.
Or
even the men that are coming in because they're doing decently well now. I've heard of young men now start asking for prenups.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh yeah, like asking for prenups. Especially those who are married.
How many billions does this man have?
No, they don't. You don't need to have billions, but the guys that are. I mean, you can imagine someone who's 40 years old, who's well established in their career, who's built quite a decent amount of wealth for themselves.
Okay.
So when you get married in your 40s, the thought process and looking at marriage is completely different. It's very transactional.
Very transactional.
Yes,
you're right.
And that therein lies the issue, right? And women are doing it too. Like, hey, I've suffered. I've been through med school. I've gone through law school. I've worked for the last 15 years and made X amount of dollars. Now I want to get married. I don't want him to take everything that I've got.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
What happened to becoming one?
It's a real thing. It's a real thing.
It's the traumatic responses,
Right.
over preparation for something that was not
For
going
things to fail.
it was not going to happen, but now that you're preparing for it, it will happen.
Yes, because now it's something you're giving life to.
Yes.
There's a possibility, and I know when we're talking about this, it almost sounds like we're naive and we're saying turn the blind eye.
No,
to
not at
everything.
all.
I think what we're saying is these things need to be discussed up front.
Absolutely.
Let's have these conversations. Let's understand how we're going
What
to
is
deal
your
with this
relationship with money?
Yes.
Needs to be a conversation that needs to be
Yes.
had while you're dating. Instead of what do you bring to the table, it should be what is your relationship with money.
Yes.
That whole what do you bring to the table is the transactional
Absolutely.
lead or transactional question, where you hear people, the very first thing they want to know is what is it that you got?
Yeah.
What do you have?
Uh-huh.
Because if I'm coming with this, what are you
I need you to
bringing?
match me.
Marriage is about sacrifice. Marriage is about servanthood. Marriage is going to grow you. Marriage is going to groom you. For that to happen, you have to give without expecting anything
Yeah.
back. The expectations have to be tempered. You do need to be informed
Yeah.
so that you know what it is that you are navigating. Is this a pillar or a value system that I cannot do without? This is something that I can't live with. This way of thinking is not something I can adjust to or understand. That's why the conversations need to be had, not for you to be looking for what you can get
Yeah.
based off of what you're bringing. That is the problem with money issues with marriage.
Yeah, that's where it starts from. And talking about you mentioned something great now that I wanted to readdress. Right?
Go ahead.
So these
Break down.
happened when we were invited to speak, and I'd shared a story of how when Tosin and I were in college, she was an international. Well, what we call it in the U.S. An international student, meaning she didn't have a residency status
to work. I
to
had
be
a
able to
residency
work.
status to go to school.
Exactly. Meaning also that she was paying times 3, times 4 what a normal
Oh my God.
person
What
would
a
pay.
resident
What
will
I
pay.
was paying at least, right? And so we met in that season, and I quickly realized that it was something that was problematic, right?
Absolutely. Which was why I had horrible credit.
Yep.
Maxed out every credit card paying tuition. Yes.
Thank God for redemption.
Oh my God.
Right?
Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah.
So I shared with the room that in that season I had access to student loans, right? And I was working full time and all of that stuff. So I didn't really need a lot of loans, but then I would take more than I needed in order to cover your tuition,
Yes.
right? And the room went quiet, and it's like, wow, why would you do that? And the question that would come,
It's a question that
usually,
always comes
every time
whenever
we share that. The
that.
question is always, what if it didn't work out? And at this time, we weren't married.
No, we were not. We were
were
not
just
even engaged.
dating.
We were dating.
Right.
This was actually it's the same question I asked you later when
You
we
did,
got
yes.
married. I said, "What if I didn't marry you?"
Right. And the response was a sucker response,
Same. It's
Which
not a
is-
sucker response.
which
I
is really-
respect it.
which is truly
Who you
in
are.
that I didn't care. I'm in love with someone who is in pain, who has
a need.
this part of their life that is I see as a problem, and it's a need, and I'm in the position to be able to provide the solution. That was the lens. And it didn't matter if we ended up together or if we didn't end up together. I just wanted to be able to be a blessing in that way, right? And looking back at it, would I have done it any differently? Actually, no. Because I believe that if you're dating someone, there has to be some value that you're adding into that person's life, whether it is financial or not. In this case, it just needed to be financial, right?
Yeah.
So the conversation is always, oh my goodness, like you actually did that. Like, what if she left you? And I'm like, yeah, and I will pay back the loan, and it would be just fine.
And that comes from, I guess, the reason you can think that way when your relationship with money is not from a lens of worship. You
Ooh.
can think that way when your relationship with money is from a lens of it being a tool.
Right.
You can think that way when you know that God is the one who provides. When you know that it's not something I did or how special I was that made me have access to
Right.
this
'Cause I didn't
money.
ask for the residency or nothing like
No,
that.
you know what I'm saying? And I'm grateful, always have been, and it did not tie me to you. It was not a reason it did, however, make me see the kind of heart you had, which was something that was important to me, was to marry a kind man, to marry a given man, to marry a man who had a heart after, and that's something when I tell people, I say, you weren't like necessarily born again, but you did things in that season that made me know that, no, this guy got potential. Like if you, by the time you add the Holy Spirit to this guy is going to be amazing. And so was I really the most spiritually mature person at that time to be able to know for a fact what you were going to turn out to be? No. And that's part of the thing I noticed when you're talking to single people nowadays. They'll be saying things like, what if this guy is a really good person, he loves God, but he doesn't have a job and he doesn't have any money? I mean, am I supposed to still get with this guy? And I'm thinking to myself, what are you talking about? You just said the first part of that statement should have been a period. He's a good person, he loves God. Period. Sign me up. Because you see, money comes and goes. He may not have money when you are dating when you were dating him, and
Right.
you coming into his life would make him a billionaire.
True.
He may have a lot of money while you're dating him, and y'all coming together, one little wrong financial decision,
And everything's
or
gone.
even an economy crash, or he invests in something wrong,
Right.
or loses his job or whatever, because people, all this, what do you bring to the table? What do you do right now? How much is in your bank account? All those things are temporary.
Yes.
One little mistake or
And
situation,
we
negative
all-
situation,
We all make mistakes.
and you are down to zero. Then what?
yeah.
Because you signed up for rich guy.
Yeah. My only rebuttal to that thought process, babe, is that I would speak to the young man and say, you need to have something doing.
Absolutely.
That's
Whatever you
what the-
find
that's-
doing,
yeah, that's
do
what
well.
the Bible tells us, right?
Yeah.
You should marry someone who has something in their hands that they're doing,
Yes.
right? Now, is that something already yielding results?
Mhm.
Is it already making them, a whole lot of the money that they want? Maybe not in that season. But to Tosin's point, they love God. They're kind, right?
They're
a
accountable.
good person.
They're good people. They have a good heart.
And then they have something that they're doing that they're working towards. For some people, it might be just being in grad school, or maybe working on their first degree, or something, or just some kind of work that they are doing, and that you can see that they're
They
trying.
have a work ethic.
A work
They have a
ethic,
good
right?
work ethic.
That we can build off of.
Yeah, because
So,
even though you were a student, you did have a job.
oh yeah, full time. I was
And
went
you
to
were
school
working
full
full time, and you were diligent with it.
Yeah.
And even in that job, you had a good savings account. I watched you and I saw how you managed your finances. You were already treating me like I was your wife, and you were taking care of things that made me feel like, again, at that time, remember, my mindset was the man handles finances, and you were handling it well for me. So it was enough for me to be like, this one is a good catch. He may not have the dream job, but he's in school, you
Right.
know, and he knows how to manage the little that he has. So at least that gave me a good insight to the kind of husband you would be.
Right.
But this is another thing. I do want to say this. This is another thing, a trend I have seen, especially with the younger generation. You'd watch a wedding, or you'd be at a wedding, or you'd watch a wedding video, and they're saying their vows. And you would hear when the priest or pastor says, for better, for worse. And they say, for better, for worse.
Mm-hmm.
For richer, for poor. And they say, for richer, for richer.
For richer.
And I'm like, you know,
Problem.
yeah.
Gentlemen,
You know?
pause. Tell the pastor to repeat the statement.
And correct it.
And correct it.
Because these are not play words. I don't think people understand. These are vows
Vows.
before God.
Yes.
And we've so trivialized it. We've gotten so comfortable playing around with them now that we just say whatever we want to say.
Yeah.
Because guess what? You say whatever you want to say. You vow whatever you want to vow. Then the time comes and then those situations hit, and this person is giving you the outcome of what they vowed, and you're wondering why. No, she never signed up for poorer, my brother. And you stood there and took that vow,
you laughed at it.
and you laughed
And you
and
thought it
walked
was
away.
funny.
She never signed up for sickness. She said health and health. So you're sick now. You're wondering why she don't know what to do. She didn't sign up for it. She never signed up for what you would call it for better for worse. She said for better for better. So I feel like you guys we need to, as a generation, stop playing around with our vows. We need to stop playing around with our vows.
I agree.
You vowed for richer, for poor. Let me tell you, just like the Bible says in Ecclesiastes, there's a season for everything. You're going to be rich today, poor tomorrow. Rich today. And when I say poor and rich, I'm not necessarily talking about billions and zero, but there's going to be seasons.
It's all hips and valleys.
Heaps
right?
and valleys.
And
heaps
that's
and
just
valleys.
how life works. We've been
Yes.
through many of those.
Oh my goodness.
Right? And it's so funny because when we shared that story of how I was able to help while we were in college and all,
Yeah.
we also went further and said, later into our careers, right, there have been times where I've been laid off or something has happened, and then you've been the pillar,
Absolutely.
right? You've been the one that held things down.
And we're not talking about like 2 weeks or
Right, I'm
a
talking,
month.
I'm talking.
We're talking 2 years.
Yeah, one time I went 2 years
Absolutely.
without like
A stable job.
proper stable
income.
job.
No, yeah.
And this woman right here was the one that really held everything down and never for once threw it in my face,
No.
which I really thank you for that.
Oh, stop.
No, honestly, never threw it in my face one time. Never made me feel less of a man.
No.
Never made me feel like I was useless in that season because I wasn't bringing anything in. It was more, what do we need to do? How much extra do I need to pull? And I got it, right? And I think the responses that we got is something we should talk about.
Absolutely.
Which was that, well,
Of course.
it's
What do you
easy
expect?
for her to do that because I've shown you that I got your back.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
after he pretty much was pitching in on help pay your tuition. Of course, now that he doesn't have a job, you're going to jump up and help financially. No. That was not it, and that is not the situation. One of the things that made a difference for us is we had conversations. We already had the money talk. We had the financial, we had our values
Right.
conversation. We knew what we valued. I loved you, whether you had or you did not have. I had met you when there was not much. So anything extra was just extra. We did learn in those seasons the importance of, we're not financial advisors, by the way, so this is not about financially advising you. So if you're
Yes,
waiting for us to tell
we're
you how to
not.
manage your finances, wrong show.
We are not.
We're not financial
You're not signing
advisors.
up on any
I
programs.
want to say that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, none of that. You know what I'm saying? But what we did learn in that season was definitely making sure that it was important for us as a family to always be able to live off of one income.
Yes.
Always be able to live off of one income. Whatever we sign up, whatever we put ourselves into,
Yeah,
whatever
mortgage
we take,
car,
anything
whatever it
we
is.
take has to be able to fit into one of us's income, because God forbid something happens to the other one's income.
Oh yeah.
And we learned that early on
Yeah.
when the first dip came in our marriage financially. Instead of it breaking us, it grew. As always, it's the lens in which you look at this thing,
Yes.
right? A lot of people are like, "Oh my God, I didn't sign up for this." Yes, they didn't sign up for this. Y'all didn't talk about it. You know, so having these tough conversations before you get married. I always say that money problems is not about dollars. It's not about naira. It's not about pounds. It's not about the currency. It's actually about trust.
Yeah.
It's about values, and it's about vision.
Yes.
You're having money problems because you lack trust in each other. You're having money problems because you guys don't have shared values about money. You're having money problem because you guys don't have a shared vision in your household
when it comes to
finances.
Ooh, so we're talking about how to get to that place, how to get to the place where we can have shared values, shared vision regarding finances.
Have the conversation. Have it early.
Yes.
Have it early. Have it very early.
Yes,
Talk about things like
I try to put myself in the shoes of someone who is dating,
what are the
right?
things you
And
don't
I'm
wanna know?
wondering, what are we talking about when we're at a table or
What's
hanging
your
out?
favorite
What-
color?
Like, who cares what your favorite color is?
What do you bring to the table?
Like, really?
What do you do for a living? These are the kind of questions that, like,
Right.
what's your credit score like? And I'm
I
like,
think the what do you do for a living kind of fits.
No, it
That's
doesn't.
not bad, but
no,
the,
I
but the
actually
issue
think,
is
nah.
no. Hold on. Here's where I'm going with this.
I want to hear it.
What someone does for a living today, while it tells that someone is doing something and they have something going, right? You wouldn't want to marry someone you don't know that they're doing something. So yes, you check a box that okay, they're doing something. But what I don't want is to get hung up on what they're doing.
That's where I wanted definitely.
Right.
Good job.
I knew you were gonna
Or
go there.
to gauge them or assess them
based off of what they're doing. Right. I
Yes.
know people that went to med school,
Oh,
a
should we
doctor,
even start with that?
right?
So many.
And really got burnt out so bad in that career path in about year 10 and decided they didn't want to be a doctor anymore.
Or people who went to med school and actually never
never
practiced.
walked a practice. So imagine someone who married them because, well, guess what?
They're
This
in
is gonna
med
be a
school.
doctor. They're in med
She's
school.
going to be a
They're
doctor.
gonna be just fine. Well, guess what? They decided that they're not
and
doing
they
it.
have a right to.
1,000%.
They have a right to. I have a right to a career change. I have a right to determine later, halfway through, that this is not going to work for me. I have a right to self-assess, self-correct, course correct. And I don't ever think it's okay to lock somebody into a box of whatever
Because of
career
what they
they're
did.
doing
Right.
when you meet them.
Right.
So that's why I don't value that question. What I do value is, what is your future plans?
Right. What is your plan?
What are your
What are you
plans?
working towards?
What are you working
Where are you
towards? Where do you
taking this
see
family?
yourself?
Right.
You know
Where
what I'm
are
saying?
going?
Where are we going?
Yeah.
You know, what do you want to do? I remember we had that conversation when we were much younger, where I was like, what do you see yourself doing? You know, what exactly, in what environment? And in
Right.
that conversation was where we were able to determine what
What paths to take?
path career-wise
Yes.
you were going to take. And
Yeah.
and I was always knew I was going to be in healthcare, so it was an easy decision for me. You know, nurturing catering is easy for me. You know, so again, having these conversations, having them early. Then the next thing I would recommend to definitely get you on the right path and away from money problems in marriage or financial disagreements in marriage is making sure that you guys get on a level playing field.
Ooh, yes. Yes.
A level playing field. We talked about how, like, upbringing, childhood experiences, circumstances surrounding your growing up,
Right.
your childhood trauma response to
Correct.
how your parents managed money or how money affected your growing up,
Yep.
right? A lot of people don't even realize they're worshiping money. They don't. In their mind, they'll tell you, I'm frugal.
Oh, yeah.
Or they'll tell you, I'm a saver. Or there's the, I just like
That's
to,
a spendthrift.
I'm a spendthrift. You know?
Yeah.
They don't
I like
realize
to
that
enjoy
it's,
my life.
they don't realize that it's actually a trauma response to money.
Mm.
So sometimes actually asking the difficult questions, talking to a therapist or a counselor and going deep, you're going to find out that, ooh,
Yep.
I actually value money so much, sometimes a little higher than God.
Yeah. Some people are willing to do anything for it.
Anything for it.
Yeah.
And so when you have those that mindset, and then you're coming into a relationship with somebody who maybe is very like, yeah,
Doesn't
care
matter.
less.
Yeah.
Bills are paid, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Somebody like that, let's assume I'm the one who's the big drive over money and you're the lax, you know.
Oh yeah, you're gonna look at me as less of a man.
We're going to clash.
It's gonna always be a clash.
We're going to clash.
Like he's not hustling
Oh
enough.
my God, he's not
doing enough.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if it was the other way around, it's like, what's wrong with this woman? She's
Yeah. She's
no
not
drive.
chipping in. She's not adding value.
Yes. You
Yeah.
know, so it's finding a level playing field, creating a level playing
Right.
field. And for us, what that looked like was early on in our marriage, we were lucky enough to attend a financial course.
Yes.
We took a financial
was
course,
helpful.
financial training course that helped us understand what was important and to be able to have conversations that were difficult
and I would suggest that for
Absolutely.
any
before you
any
get married,
couple,
actually.
when you
But it's
start-
not too late.
start thinking about marriage. I think it's important, and these things help put us at set a baseline
Mm-hmm.
for how we operate, right? It's like set the values. What's important to us? And some of the things we learned in that class is things, tools that we are still using today.
Absolutely.
A lot of them we've tweaked over time
to match our lifestyle.
But it gave us a place to start, right?
Yes.
When you're talking about things like insurance.
Insurance.
Why is it important to have
life insurance?
Life insurance. Making sure that if anything were to happen to me, that my wife and my kids are well taken care of, right? In the Western world, many families have used and utilized insurance as a tool to build wealth.
Absolutely.
For centuries, right? Why are we not doing that? In the African household, it's like, when she start talking about insurance, like,
are you trying to kill me?
Somebody's trying to kill somebody,
I'm not going to die in Jesus'
not
name.
looking at it that
Oh, my
way.
God.
Things like having a college fund for the kids.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Making sure that, hey, we start that early. So
building
that
credit.
Yeah, the burdens of it doesn't come back on us as parents.
Absolutely.
When the kids then start to go to college, right?
Yep.
You mentioned building credit. That's a good one, right?
How do we do this?
Why is it important to have
what
that?
cards are we putting ourselves, our partners on? Which ones are individual? Which one's paying what? Banking.
What cards do we put the kids on?
Yes.
So that we can help them build their credit before they.
Wealth.
Yeah,
yes.
1000%.
What's bill pay, budgeting, tithing, banking.
Yes.
How do we manage our banking? Again, we're not financial analysts, but these are conversations that we had to become we had to set a level playing field for us, because we both had, up until that time, we used to actually have money fights. If you remember, we used to have money fights. And I remember when we were signing up for the course and we started taking it, we were like, at least this will give us a level playing field. Can we agree that what we learn from here will now determine and will start us on the conversations for how we want to manage money going forward? And it was there that we learned that I was actually, it's so crazy. I was the spender. Funny enough, when we did an assessment to which I was a spender, which I am a spender because I'm very lax on money. Absolutely lax. My hands are like this.
Always want something.
And always wanting to give it. I give it. My hands are open. And my husband was more of a saver, so we learned that, and we thought, okay, that means that since he's the saver and I'm the spender, he'll be the better one to manage.
I also had a
finances.
finance minor in college,
and he minored in finance.
So it's like, 1 + 1.
2. It's perfect. He'll be the right person. Then there was another assessment that we did that helped to show different characteristics of each person.
Yes.
And we learned that, and that was something we've always known, that I was the more planner, organized one. I'm the one that will keep a spreadsheet. I'm the one that will organize and plan everything. And he was very lax with life. He was not as organized, and detail oriented. And with the combination, what we actually learned was that I was actually the better one to manage our finances.
Yes.
I was confused. If you're as confused as I am, I was confused, and
that was a struggle for me too.
It was a struggle for me.
I struggled because up until then,
you were managing our
I was
finances.
managing it. I thought I was doing a pretty decent job at it, right?
You're doing a close call business. Good.
But everything was paid.
It was paid.
We never got behind on anything.
No, we didn't.
I felt like, I'm doing okay. And again, my background. I watched my dad be the man of the house. And
managing money meant you were the provider.
Right. And so from an African mindset, you're telling me that I have to go to work, get money, and then my wife is the one doing the disbursement and all of that stuff. I felt emasculated for a season. Like what are we talking about?
No, but the crazy thing was you didn't like it. I didn't like it.
I didn't like it.
I didn't like it
but
either.
I was doing it.
Because I came from the mindset of the man's supposed to handle the money. I don't want to handle money. And I remember, I hate money. Like, I sincerely hate talking about. I'm that girl that goes to the grocery store and my friends would be like, how much did you buy that? And I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know. Because if I needed it and I had the money, I'm going to buy it. Why do I need to care how much it is? So that's my mindset. And so I'm like, I am not the right person to do this. But over time, we both worked together and realized that based off of the skill I had, which was the organized skill and the planning skill, it's not like Sami wasn't paying the bills, but Sami would be like, the bill is due on the 2nd. Sami will send it to them on the 2nd.
I paid on the 2nd.
It's due on the 2nd. And that will give me major anxiety. It's not like the money was not in the account, and I, on the other hand, the bill is due on the 2nd and I paid it 2 months ago. just because I don't do last minute
like close
anything.
calls.
I don't like close calls. You know, my husband literally, we were joking about it today. You weren't there. We're talking with a group of our friends, and they were talking about how, like, if his flight is at 1:00, he's gonna leave the house to where he gets there just in time to walk straight onto the plane.
Yes.
He's not trying to like sit at the airport.
And I don't miss my flights.
And he does. I don't know how he does it.
I
Now,
just time it.
It gives me major anxiety.
Oh,
if
yeah.
my flight is at 1:00, I'm at the airport sitting down by 12.
Yeah, we'll be there. That's when we get to use the lounge and everything. We sit down for hours.
We're
and I'm
sitting
like,
down
what,
at
what are
12.
we doing here?
And he hates it. But, you know, when he's traveling with me, we're going early. When he's going by himself, he's pulling that close call stuff. So that's, you know, with that kind of personality, we realized that my personality was better to manage our finances. And it's been how many years? At least 10 years.
No, over 10.
It's been over 10
Oh,
years.
Yeah, you've been handling it.
And I've been CFO. I've struggled the first few years. I fought it. Many times I'm like, just take it back. But we've gotten comfortable with it. And managing it doesn't mean that I was solely responsible for it. It meant that we will talk through budget meetings. Remember, we talk about how we run our home like it's a corporation. And maybe one day we will go on a whole full topic about what that looks like. But we run our home like it's a corporation. So when we have budget meetings, we're talking about how we intend to spend the income that's coming in. And then my job is just to disperse as a CFO and to keep us accountable to our goals and what we plan, because I will draw out a plan based upon what we said, you know, and that frees his brain as a CEO to keep casting visions, keep running our businesses. I'm looking at the bigger picture. Yes, keep going and building and making more and, you know, bringing more in. Not that I don't bring in, but he's okay to bring more. I'm okay with that. I ain't fighting that.
Yeah, I don't mind.
So that brings us to something, which is keeping up with the Joneses. I want to make sure that we stay on time with this episode. I feel like we're like, there's a lot to say.
You're trying to go off.
But I want to throw everything out there. Keeping Up with the Joneses is a movie we watched. We watched it a long time ago.
It's actually a real movie.
It's a real movie. Y'all need to watch it. If you haven't seen it, yes, I recommend it. Yeah. I don't know. It's not a Christian movie or anything like that.
No, but it's a lot of lessons.
But it's a movie that after we watched, we were like, oh my God.
Yeah. I think it's it's a concept we've always known. And I think for the most part, people who are halfway, you know, smart, we know to not keep up with the Joneses. The Joneses here, you know, the friends and all of that.
And what that means is just in general society. Yes. Everybody's driving a Tesla, so I need to buy one, even though you don't have the money for one. Everybody is moving to a certain neighborhood because that's the new kind of homes everybody got. So you go do the same, even though your funds are not enough for that. You know, just everybody's buying this new gadget, so you go buy it. And you guys are struggling financially. Keeping up with the Joneses is a problem that a lot of couples actually deal with.
And it goes back to the value conversation.
Yes.
Right? What is important to us
as a couple,
as a couple,
as a home, as a family?
I'll use a very simple, basic example. I use an iPhone 13.
Yeah.
Right?
So do I.
Yeah, it's both of us actually.
Yeah.
That's not because I can't go get the newest one.
But we don't value it.
But I'm like, my phone is working.
We don't care.
Like, why do I need to have? Besides, they haven't changed the design or anything on it anyway, so I'm not really pressed to go get it. But I know a lot of people that the day the phone comes out, they have to have it.
Now, some of them might have the money for it, but then there's
and if you
those
have
who
the
don't.
money for it, and by all means, you'll
That's
like
fine.
gadgets, and that's great. You know, we all have our things, right? I have things that I splurge on.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we're talking about those who really don't have it, or that money could be doing other things, right? Or could be spread out in other areas that could be more beneficial. Keeping up with the Joneses is the quickest way to get ourselves into trouble
Financial
as a family.
debt. Oh
and
my
that
God.
then puts a strain on our marriages.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Like Tosin said earlier, we must have the latest of everything. The latest of the new cars and all of that stuff. Not looking at the big picture of how it actually affects us as a household.
Absolutely.
That is huge in our community and our
So
society.
to summarize today's episode, I feel like the things that we've put out here today when it comes to money is, of course, money conversations start before marriage.
Yes,
right?
It has
you
to.
gotta unpack it.
It has to.
You have to find out what your relationship with money is. That's important, right?
Yes.
And then also understanding and respecting the vows that you make, right?
Yes.
Being serious about them. Then setting an equal playing field in your marriage some kind of training, some kind of agreement, having the conversation about money to agree on how
What
we
is
want to do,
important?
what
How do
does it
we
look
wanna
like, what
run
are our
it?
values.
Yeah.
Then, of course, trust, value, and vision.
Yes.
Extremely important for you to actually establish what those are for you guys.
Yeah.
Do not, please, avoid keeping up with the Joneses. Let the Joneses do what the Joneses want to do.
This is gonna be
Okay?
all right.
They're going to be all right, right?
We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
You know, the
And
race is
we
not to the
always
swift.
get there. That's
We
the thing.
always get there.
Pace
Absolutely.
yourself.
Yeah.
Do things when it's right, when God is telling
Yeah.
you to do it.
And then there is no set assigned role when it comes to money. In marriage is what I believe. There's no set assigned role. It doesn't have to be the husband, doesn't have to be the wife. It is a both of you thing. As long as you're
As long as
both
we agree.
agreeing and you're both working towards
Yeah,
that
there's
vision. So
transparency.
with that being said, I want to ask you, what is the one financial lesson that God has taught you in marriage?
Oh, that God is sovereign. That God is sovereign. I've been through. We've been through many seasons. Many seasons since we've been together. There's been seasons of plenty, seasons of not having a
Lack,
lot
yeah.
of lack. So many different things. And what I'm taking away is that God He knows everything. Even if I have $1 million in my bank account right now, and I'm telling myself that I've done well and I'm okay, that $1 million literally can disappear in a week, in a day, or in an hour. So it's not about how hard I can work or how much I'm bringing. It's God is the giver of everything. So
Absolutely.
God is sovereign.
Absolutely.
What about you?
Oof.
What's your biggest lesson?
I think my biggest lesson that I learned being in marriage and that I feel like God revealed to me is about the roles. I learned that it doesn't have to be a man that is handling money or
Right.
finances. It doesn't have to be a woman that is managing stuff, but that it is whoever it is that is equipped with the gift
To do it.
to do it. And as long as you identify that, then all is well. So with that being said, I think that we have thrown out a bunch of nuggets about money.
Questions,
Money,
concerns
money.
in the comments. I'd love to hear.
Yes.
What people
Y'all
are
talk
thinking.
to us. Talk to us in the comment section and talk to us on Instagram. Send us a DM. Talk to us on TikTok, wherever. And let's see what it is that y'all are doing that is keeping you from
Yes.
having money problems. And what are the ones that what are the issues that you are experiencing?
Whatever
that is
we're
making it
struggling with
difficult? Yeah, whatever it
still.
is. Let's talk about it,
Yeah.
okay? So with that being said, what do we want people to do, babe?
Like, comment, subscribe. Go follow us on all social media platforms.
All of them?
All of them. We're on everything.
Everything.
All right. And we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.